This episode of WDW Today is being sponsored by MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. And there's a lot of, different events coming up later in this year. It's already April, but, there's lots of great events coming down, whether it's going to be maybe you're going down for the Wine and Dine, that the food and wine event going on in October. Maybe you're coming down for Reunion in December. That's right. That's coming down in December. Perhaps you're looking at other events that are going on throughout the year, Star Wars weekends. Regardless of which event you're talking about, the best place to book your travel for your next trip to Walt Disney World and all your trips to Walt Disney World is going to be MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. They're my preferred travel agency. In fact, when I book a trip to Walt Disney World or any Disney location, destination, cruise, Disneyland, whatever it may be, I call MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. So you should too. Give them a try at least. It's the same. There's zero cost to you in terms of fees or anything like that. No. If anything, you're coming out ahead. Give them a try. Visit them at www.mousefantravel.com.
This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Wednesday, April 14th, 2010, and this is episode 707 of WDW Today. I'm Matt Hochberg of StudioCentral.com. Joining me on today's show is Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. And Mike, let the airplane jokes begin. 707, so we can start making these jokes pretty soon.
I didn't even put the two together.
Also joining us on today's show is Mike Scopa, a senior feature writer and blogger for allears.net. Welcome, Mike.
And in the beginning, of course, there was Foot Power.
World of Motion.
World of Motion.
It's fun to be free.
I realized, Mike, as Scopa was saying his thing, that I probably should try setting up my jokes before I go to the punchline.
Swing
that works.
Zoom right over your head. Okay.
Where's that cricket? Get those crickets.
It's Wednesday, and we're going to try to answer the listener questions. And we'll start with a question from Ken Kleiner of Hudson, New Hampshire. He writes, on each trip our family takes to the world, we always eat dinner at the Garden Grill at the Land Pavilion. We love the fact that it moves and really like the scenes along the way, plus the very strange hidden Mickey that's fun to find there. I always like the fish they serve there, and the character interactions are fun and plentiful. Anyways, most people I've talked to cannot stand that restaurant. My apologies if one of the panel agrees. But if that's just one of those quirky things, we like something to go back again and again, others don't even like to go for even one visit. Leads me to a question for y'all. What one attraction, restaurant, or etc. do you like that you think or know that most people do not? Might be an interesting topic, and by chance that Mike picked this as the last question of the show. Thanks, Mike. Hoping for a quick trip this year, 2010 that is, to use our one-day give-a-day, get-a-day pass. That's an interesting question. Let's start with Scopa. What's something that you like, that you know the grain on the internet would be, really? You're going there? Or you like that, or you're whatever it may be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got to think of either a restaurant or an attraction. Was that it?
Yeah, it can be really anything in Disney World that, you particularly like that most people generally don't, or it seems that way at least.
Wow. Okay. Wow, this is
a
really
tough question. I mean, this reminds me of something. I don't mean to steal your thunder, Newell, if this is your answer here, but Nine Dragons.
Nine Dragons.
Yeah, I thought of that as soon as I thought of Mike. I'd say, Matt, that there are two things that come to mind. Number one is I really enjoy every once in a while just walking up and down Main Street and just checking out the buildings, checking out the windows, and just trying to say, okay, so who is that one? And I try to identify the names and why they're associated with the task or whatever on the windows. I think that's something that I do. It's probably something that is boring for a lot of people. And the other thing I like to do is, I talk about Pop Century a lot. I love the what do you call that? The bridge over Pop Century. I just love to go out there at night and walk along that bridge. I forget what that's called.
Is it Generation Gap Bridge?
Generation Gap Bridge across Hourglass Lake. That's right. Thank you. Those are the two things that I don't know. I just they make me feel really good. I like the ability of just relaxing and taking my time. But for other people that might be like boring. Let's do Space Mountain.
Yeah, no, fair enough. What about you, Newell?
Definitely, like you said earlier, Nine Dragons for me.
You still like it even after the rehab? Because the whole bit about you and Nine Dragons started way before they redid it. What it was? It's already been like 2 years now, I think.
Let me rephrase. The lunch seemed to be much better than the dinner was.
I haven't tried the lunch yet over there.
I enjoyed the lunch much better, much more than we did that night when we went with Len.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the lunch was a better option, better to me it was anyway. So I would go back for lunch. I don't know how quick I'd go back for dinner, but I would definitely go back for lunch.
Okay, fair enough. I know one attraction that I think a lot of people like, but they think that everyone else hates, but it's not really the case, is the TTA. I know that when a lot of people say, like, what's your favorite attraction at the Magic Kingdom? And a lot of people will be like, I really like the TTA, the Tomorrowland Transit Authority. And it's like, yeah, me too. And it's one of those, it's not so much that everyone hates it. It's just that it's not, like Scopa said, everyone expects, Space Mountain, Splash Mountain,
Yeah, it's not a headline. I mean, that I'll tell you that came to my mind, that was, and I thought, maybe someone else will say that. And,
I mean, in terms for myself, I'm trying to think of, most of the attractions I can come up with are not like people hate, like I don't like Stitch's Great Escape or anything like that. I'm talking about attractions that are more like mediocre more than anything. I like Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor. I think, I don't know, I find it enjoyable. I don't know, maybe it's just a sitting down for a while in the air conditioning that does it for me. But I do enjoy that attraction quite a bit.
Matt, if I had to pick a restaurant, I mean, I'd probably say Trail's End does it for me, but it may not do it for a lot of people because, number one, it's off the beaten path. Number two, it really doesn't have a theme or characters or things like that. So for a lot of people, they may say, no, I'm not really into that. But that's something that I try to do every trip.
No, I agree with you, Mike. I mean, I know that I love Trail's End too, and I know that our friend Janine, who listens to this show, she never understands why we like Trail's End so much. It's just like, why? And it's hard to explain, but it's just one of those. I could eat there every day. I love it that much in terms of the food that they serve there.
And she's got a West Coast bias, probably.
Yeah.
What about you, Newell? What's one restaurant that you really like that no one? I mean, other than
Nine Dragons.
Other than Nine Dragons.
I've always been a fan of Olivia's, even though it's not as good as it used to be when it first started. And I'll still go back there when a lot of people that if I'm with somebody, I'll suggest it. They'll be like, eh. But
right.
I'll still want to go back there. So that's one of the places that I still enjoy going to.
Cool. Next email is from Emily Roach of Montgomery, Alabama, who writes, regarding the buy 4, get 3 free, have you guys heard anything about this promotion being done again this year?
Officially, I have not heard anything. I think that unless the economy turns around quicker than it is, we might. I think that if we hear anything, I'm guessing in the next 3 to 4 months, we'd probably hear something like that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing about buy 4, get 3 free is they had the initial one, and that was really well received. And then last year they did this buy 5, get 2 free thing, and they started they started tinkering with the deal, and it wasn't as good because you had to there were rules. You had to get length of stay passes, because before it was just the first initial time it was just you buy 4 days at a 4 days at any resort, you'll get 3 for free. And it was a really great deal. And they said, well, now it's going to be buy 5, get 2, which obviously you're buying more, getting less. And you had to get length of stay tickets, and it wasn't as good as a thing. But didn't it come out in like the spring? I seem to recall that being the spring deal. And
yeah. Usually it's like a few months ahead of time because they want you to book like within like 6 weeks, and it's for something later in the year, Matt. I think that in all these promotions, I think that what Disney is trying to do is they're trying to get you to stay a little bit. First off, they're trying to get you down there, and secondly, they're figuring out we'll throw in a free night here and there. And we'll get you in the parks, because if we get you in the parks, well, you're going to need admission. You're going to be buying food. You're probably going to be buying souvenirs. So I think that's the whole idea here. But I think you're right. I think that we'll hear it sometime in the spring, maybe between the end of this month and the end of June, and it would be for something like August through maybe the 1st of October. I don't know.
Next email is from John G. in Madison, Wisconsin, who writes, greetings, friends. I just decided to dip my toe into the discussion about tipping for housekeeping service. I'm in my 21st year in the hotel industry, so I've seen it go every which way. First off, Matt, you're correct in your logic and the way you feel. I disagree with you, but your logic is sound. Here's my quick thoughts about why you tip housekeeping daily. I only have 3 points. The room attendant is the lowest paid person in any hotel operation. They make less than dishwashers and work just as hard. Tips are left from about 50% of guests, so it's not recognized as a tip position like with waitstaff. It's not the guest's fault that this is the practice, but it's a factor. 2, tips in our current culture are now seen as a reward. Instead, I use them as intended to ensure proper service. Get it? Tips. TIPS. You will get basic service as a rule. When I tip proactively, I get legendary service. My very best restaurant experiences have happened when I found the wait person and slipped a 5 to encourage attentive service. It always pays off. Right or wrong, it's effective. 3, tips are not pooled, and it's hard to know when your housekeeper has a day off. It's not uncommon for a part-time relief to go get a tip for an entire stay because the regular housekeeper is away. An alternative practice is to put your desired tip in an envelope and leave it for the hotel manager to distribute. A reputable hotel will make sure that it gets to the correct hands. Thanks for the great show. John, I think you bring up some good points. The one thing about the second tip, no pun intended, the one about where he tips proactively. And this goes back to the mafia thing I was talking about before. Like you shouldn't have to, grease the wheels of progress in order to
get clean towels.
to get to exactly, Mike. I mean, there's a certain level of acceptance, and that's the thing the problem I have with it. And then it becomes, you have to tip everybody in order to get any decent service. Well, that shouldn't be the case.
Here's the question I got. If you stay for, let's say, 7 days,
yep.
What is the amount of determination of tip that you would leave for 7 days at a moderate? Let's say we're at a moderate and we're staying for 7 days. How much would you feel at the end of 7 days is worth a tip?
Then to answer that, Mike, I would say it depends on the service that I got.
All right, let's just say, just general. You got really good service. Everything was fine. Everything was clean. No problems at all. Well, what would you leave for an average 7 day stay? $20?
$15 to $20, something like that.
So now you break that down, into 7 days. That's $2 or $3 a day.
Uh-huh.
Wouldn't you think that the server or the housekeeping people would take that as an insult if you left $2?
It's probably true.
I mean, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where do you win? You can't win. And to me, in this situation, you cannot win. If you leave too little, it's an insult. If you wait till the end, it might be an insult because the other person might not be there at the end of the week to collect.
Yep.
How do you? I don't know. Yeah, and if you stay at a moderate, do you tip less because you're supposed to get better service because you're spending more?
Right. That's another good point, Mike.
If you stay at a deluxe, you're not supposed to tip at all because you're spending all this money to get that service. I don't know. I don't know the answer to this.
Yeah, it's a touchy subject for a lot of people.
It is.
You can get really strong opinions one way or the other. But John, thanks for sending in your opinion.
And for the record, I tip at the DVC, and we don't even get daily housekeeping. And I always tip at the end. At the end of the trip, I always leave a tip, and we don't get daily housekeeping. I get on a standard week. I get when we first come in, and on a Wednesday, and that's it.
That's actually easier for you because then you know who's going to be cleaning your room. You know what I mean?
Well, you don't really because the person, only one person comes in to actually clean the room while we're there for the week.
Right.
So
I understand what you're saying.
It might be a different crew.
Who's going to get the tip?
Oh, no, because it might be a different crew from the prior week. You don't know.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
so I might be leaving, whatever. Yeah, I leave depending on the size of the room. In that case, a studio room, I won't leave as much as I would if I stayed at the Grand Villa.
Grand Villa. Oh, gotcha.
So it depends on the size. In that case, it depends on the size of the room.
The one thing I will say that if, let's say, someone in my room is sick or it's we make a mess, you know what I mean? We know it. When you're bad and oof,
right.
I would hate to have to clean this up, that kind of feeling. Then I think at that point you do have to leave you have to kind of, for your trouble tip.
You bring
know
up
what I mean?
You bring up another. Well, no, you bring up another very good point. See, I tend to leave my room almost as clean as when I got it. Except I don't make the beds and change the towels, but I make sure all the garbage is thrown away. I make sure everything's clean.
Yeah, me too.
I make sure all my dirty towels are in the tub, so all they know those are the dirty ones, and I tend to clean up before I leave, and I still leave a tip. So
I actually fold the towels and put them on the tub.
Yeah,
wow. Yeah. Next email is from Scott from Washington, D.C. He writes, can you tell me a little bit more about the rented RV you had delivered to Fort Wilderness for TenFest 2010? I love the idea and was curious about the companies that offered it, the cost, any minimum number of days required, etc.
Well, the company we rented from was called RV Rentals of Orlando. And there are several companies that you can rent from in the Lake Buena Vista or Orlando area. This one happened to deliver the RV to the site, and that's why we went with this company, is because for an extra $200, they came, they hooked it up, they drove it. We didn't have to do any of that stuff. And on the day of checkout, we just had to leave before 11 o'clock, and they came and picked it up and disconnected it. So I never even saw the guy come and take it. So as far as I know, it still could be there.
You had it for like 3 days. Was there a
it was
minimum number?
3-day minimum with this particular company. I'm assuming that they were all like that, but that's an assumption. You can call the different companies. Just type in RV rentals Orlando or Lake Buena Vista in Google, and a bunch of companies will come up. But we went with this one because they delivered it for us.
Happy with the service?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, the RV was nice. It was warm. Had no problems with the heat.
It was great
on a cold night. But no, in all seriousness, if you want to stay there, that's the way to go. And they have different sizes. We had the biggest one. We got their most biggest unit, but there were smaller units that you can get as well for a little less cheaper.
Cool. A little less cheaper.
More cheaper.
Cheaper. More gooder.
More gooder.
Next email is from Naomi, Nurse Omi in chat from just north of Detroit, Michigan. Okay, Sterling Heights, but nobody knows where that is.
That's north of Michigan, of Detroit.
Of course.
Yes. I knew that.
United States, yeah.
United States. I just finished listening to episode 614. Thanks for being so kind to service people. They are hardworking, lower-paid people who often go the extra mile to make that tip. And when that shows, they deserve some recognition or acknowledgement from you. I've originally tipped over and above even the 20% at a restaurant when I get exceptional service that was not expected. With 2 preschoolers in tow, we have had 2 very exceptional experiences at Disney. I have a question, and I think it would actually be a great show topic. What is your most memorable service at a Disney restaurant, park, or hotel? Allow me to share mine. 2 small ones, but both really made our day. First is at Flying Fish. It was when my youngest was 2. During this day, we did not generally order anything for her because she didn't eat much and was usually content with just picking off plates of the 3 adults at the table. When our waiter, Bob from Ohio, asked for our order, she spouted out peanut butter and jelly, which was not even on the children's menu. We all laughed and said not to worry, she would eat off our plates. When our food came, however, Bob brought a jar of strawberry jelly and a little glass of peanut butter. He mentioned that he had called up to another restaurant and had someone deliver them for us to eat with her roll. He was just delightful the entire meal also and was very attentive. Now, 3 years later, I still remember his name. And the second experience was actually a bad situation turned right and also had to do with the same daughter a year later at Boma. My daughter was not feeling at dinner time and didn't want anything off the buffet. So our waitress checked on us multiple times, conjured up some orange Jell-O, which was what she wanted, and got her to smile and be happy. I swear she checked us twice as many times as the other tables. She got a full 20% tip. We also asked to speak to the manager on the way out and gave her a full complimentary report on her actions.
Cool.
Yeah, I've got 2 stories that come to mind very quickly. One was we were eating. It was my wife's birthday. We were at Tepanito, our favorite restaurant, and Tepanito is a hibachi style restaurant. So they cook all the food in front of you, and all our food was the chef's cooking them. Comes all out, and he puts it on our plates, and I'm like, getting ready to eat. So all our food is done, and I go down and get the camera to take a picture of it, and my elbow hits the plate, and my plate goes just all over my lap. So the food is totally, gone. You know what I mean? And they could have been like, sorry, stupid, but they were the chef didn't even ask. He yelled something in Japanese. And
sorry, stupid.
Yeah, right. Not to me, at the waitresses, and he made the whole food back again in like 5 minutes. I mean, he didn't even hesitate, and they brought me seltzer water to get the stains out and everything. Very, very nice. And I was sure I always send letters to Disney whenever I have great service like that. And the other experience I had was I was at, I think I mentioned this on the show, I was at Typhoon Lagoon, and we counter service, got our food, went to a table, and I went to get up to go get some napkins or whatever. And the flock of seagulls, not the band, actually flock of seagulls came, attacked our food.
I walk along the avenue. I never thought
they swarmed the table and just went crazy. And it was I didn't know what to do. So I brought the tray back to Disney, and I fully expected. I was ready to order another meal. I was like, look, they destroyed our meal. I got to order something else again. And the woman was like, don't worry about it. Just she took my receipt, reordered everything, and gave us all back just a brand new meal.
That was nice.
For free. So, and again, I sent a letter about that. So you got to reward that kind of service because that's really important. That's what really separates, I think, Disney World from a lot of other places is that attention to detail. What about you guys? Do you guys have experiences like that?
I can remember back before Chef Mickey's was Chef Mickey's. I think it was called the Contemporary Cafe. And I remember going there, and it was a buffet. And I remember going up to the they had the chef and they had prime rib and everything. And I never was a prime rib kind of guy. I like my meat well done. And I remember the chef saying, "Gee, this is your second time up and you haven't asked for prime rib." I said, "Well, I don't like it rare. I like it well done." He said, "Well, I'll cut you a slab." So he cuts me a piece and says, "Come back and no." He said, "I'll get your waitress. Who's your waitress?" And I said, "Who's your server?" And I told him. And I went back to my table and I had a salad, whatever. And then she comes with a piece of prime rib, and it was really good. So I thought to myself, well, I'm going to have to go up and mention to the chef that I was grateful for his idea. He said he was going to cook it for me, well done and everything, and he cooked it perfectly. So I don't know, about 10, 15 minutes later after I had eaten it, I went up and I went to get some other food, and he said to me, "So how was the piece of rib?" I said, "It was really, really good." I said, I wish I had thought about it earlier. I said, "It's probably one of the best pieces of prime rib I've ever had." He said, "Well, you're going to like the second one." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I just sent another one to your table."
Wow.
So the server, so he had contacted her. He had asked her to check to see if I was enjoying it, and she had said yes. And so he had cut me another piece. He had cooked it, and he had sent it back. But he wanted it delivered to my table while I wasn't there because he wanted to tell me that. So I thought that was somewhat of a personal service that they really took note. It was like an individual kind of thing. He was really, really concerned about my experience, and he did whatever he could to do that. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on top of the head, Mike. It's that personal service, because these people are dealing with hundreds, if not thousands, of guests every single day, and it's not like you're gonna not that you don't stick out, but they got to deal with everybody. They can't be worrying just about yourself, and it really is something when they are able to make your day like that.
I hate to say it, but most of my memorable ones are the ones that were bad.
Oh, well, yeah,
only because they stand out so much.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, a bad experience will always stand out much worse than any good experience that you'll ever have.
And Mike, you guys will back me up on this. The last time we were at Artist Point.
Yes, no, that was a doozy.
That's just one of the ones that stand out, and it wasn't bad as much bad service as so much of a rude server.
Yes,
that he had a server with attitude more than that he was bad. It wasn't that the service was bad; it's that he was rude.
What you're saying, Mike, is that the bad service was an aberration because we're all used to the good service. But I remember that Artist Point. That made me kind of dizzy that night.
Next email is from Michelle Walk of West Des Moines, Iowa. Writes, any plans for a ride or other attraction based on WALL-E? I think it would be great for Tomorrowland or Pixar Place.
I love WALL-E.
That's a great film. There's nothing. They had a WALL-E animatronic that they were testing. It didn't really work out very well in terms of a park meet and greet that had been planned for it. They actually brought it over to the D23 Expo last year, and they had him out on display there, which was really cool for people that were there. But I haven't heard any attractions based on it. I would love to see something like that. And I agree with you. Tomorrowland, I mean, there's a lot of attraction. I think any of us would really say is that we wouldn't mind seeing go if they were going to replace it with a nice WALL-E attraction there.
I would love to see that.
I really think that a lot of attractions somehow tied into potential merchandise sales at times, and I think that in the case of WALL-E, that would have been something. Just like the reason why they decided to go with Stitch's Great Escape, because Stitch was like number 4 on the merchandise hot list, and they figured, well, we'll use Stitch. He's very popular, and then we'll empty out into a souvenir shop, and there'll be all kinds of Stitch merchandise. I think that that's part of the decision-making process myself.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. I mean, obviously, it's not like they sit back and say which attractions would be good. You got to factor in a lot of different things, and you're right. Merchandise has a big deal about it. That's why you see a lot of Cars stuff in the park. You see the Cars. You say, well, Cars, that film's a couple of years ago. It wasn't really that big of a film, but it's huge for merchandise, especially with boys. So,
right.
Toy Story is a fine example right there.
Excellent point. Yes. Next email is from Alyssa from Dover, New Hampshire. A lot of New Hampshire people. In episode 600, a listener asked if any closed attraction at either Hollywood Studios or Animal Kingdom would evoke the same nostalgia as Horizons or Journey to Imagination. Well, for that, I would definitely be the Walt Disney Animation Studio Tour. Recently, I took my sister to Walt Disney World to celebrate her high school graduation. Our last visit had been back in '97. On our first day, we went to Hollywood Studios, and I immediately went to see the animation building. Even though I knew it was no longer a working studio, I was still a little heartbroken to see that current state of the attraction. When my dad brought me on the animation tour in '97, I was ecstatic. I was already taking art lessons and obsessed with animation, so getting to see a Disney film in production was one of the highlights of the trip for me. Seeing the building now mostly empty was definitely a sad moment on an otherwise wonderful trip. Thanks so much for all you do on the podcast and for all your great advice. Now, if you could just tell me how to get out of the trip planning mode and put my copy of the unofficial guide down, I would be very appreciative.
The only difference with that is that at least that building still exists. You can still walk through that.
Yeah, even if it is still a shell of its former self. I mean, you wouldn't mind, Newell, seeing, if you had Horizons building and you had,
No.
God, I can't imagine how they could water that down. But you know what I mean? Like, if they, kind of like what they did with Living Seas, it's
Right.
The building is still there, but it's totally different inside.
That still would be cool.
Yeah, you can still walk through Living Seas and be like, oh yeah, I kind of remember when this was this and this was that, and it's a little different.
Yep.
Next email is from Kevin Craig of Boca Raton, Florida, who writes, I, like Len, have many fond memories of the Contemporary Resort from childhood vacations to Disney World. To me, after the Magic Kingdom, the Contemporary is Disney World. In the last few years, Disney has priced me out of staying at the Contemporary, so I really haven't kept up with what's going on there. I recently found out about their new Wave restaurant. When I learned that the Wave is going to be in the place of the old cafeteria and arcade, to say that I was devastated would be an understatement. I know in recent years the Contemporary Arcade was a shell of its former self, but I couldn't help but feel the moving of the arcade signaled an end of an era. During the 80s and into the early 90s, the Contemporary Arcade was without a doubt one of the finest and most unique arcades in the whole United States. I was wondering if your memories were as vivid as mine. From the shooting gallery that rivaled, if not surpassed, the one in Frontierland, to the movie theater that featured Disney cartoons and movies, to just a huge room filled with all the newest video games of the era, the arcade was something special, and I will always cherish my memories of it.
I love that arcade over there.
Yeah, me too. It was the biggest one. I mean, it was even bigger than I believe the one at the Beach Club. I think it was bigger than that. Would you say, Mike?
Oh, definitely. I remember waiting for Mary to fall asleep during some trip so I can get in the car and drive over there. That's the God's honest truth. Oh, yes. Yes, because she hates arcades. And she hates waiting for me to go inside of one. So I would wait till she went to sleep, and I would drive all the way over to the Contemporary from Old Key West.
You'd feed her like a really heavy meal with like lots of like carbs and
lots of wine. Yeah, have some more wine. Yeah,
turkey. Turn the lights down and like turn the heat up.
Some soft music, and she'd pass out, and I'd get in the car and run over. And
let's play the slow hits channel.
Spent hours at that arcade. And that was before you needed to get to the the guard's desk. You just pull right in, drive right up to it, and endless hours of fun.
I think it's time for our last question of the day, right, Mike?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Last question of the day means I will give Mr. Newell 3 questions to choose from. One gets answered today. The other 2 go back into the email queue to be answered later. Ready, Mike?
Let's go.
First option is it ethical, Mr. Newell?
Uh-oh.
Yeehaw Eclipse. Matt is wrong.
So many good choices there.
So little time.
Yes, I know. I'll go. You know what? I'm not going to pick on you tonight. So let's go with the first one.
Is it ethical, Mr. Newell? Last email of the day comes from Shane Grizzard of Orlando, Florida.
How many questions are we going to answer from Shane? And then tomorrow on Facebook, he goes on. He's got a contest with somebody. Haha, I got my question answered. You watch.
I feel bad after I publicly slammed him in the Odyssey show.
You watch.
I didn't mean to. Anyway, Shane writes, hey guys and gal, I have a question about the extra magic hours, specifically in the Magic Kingdom for people not staying in Disney Hotel. Warning, this may bring up a controversial topic that some listeners may find unethical. Let me set it up for you. I work for a non-Disney company that requires me to be in the Magic Kingdom at 9 a.m. so I could coordinate an event at 9:30. But because it was an extra magic hour morning, I knew that they would be holding everyone who did not have a resort ID, namely me, at the Ticketing Transportation Center until park opening. So I ended up parking at the Polynesian and hopped on the resort monorail because they're not going to check the resort IDs at the resort, right? By the time I got to the bag check at the entrance, it was 9 o'clock and the park was open to everyone, but it brought up an interesting theory. Let's say I'd done the same thing 2 hours earlier. Do they check for resort ID again at the Magic Kingdom entrance after you've gone off the monorail and ferry? Could I have entered the park without being a resort guest on this plan? Well, yeah, I mean, the way it works is you go into the park, and extra magic hours, be it morning or evening, when you go to the park, they check not only your ticket, obviously, you have to go through the turnstile over there, but also your resort ID. Be it when they used to have the wristbands. I'm sure you guys remember when we were there for some event. I don't remember anymore. The one where Len decided to take the bus from Saratoga and we all drove. And I remember you had to go wait in line to get your wristband, but obviously they don't do that anymore. But you need to show your room key everywhere you go now.
I haven't been to an. Let me see. I don't remember if I've been to an extra magic hour morning in a long time. I know that for extra magic hour evenings, before you get on an attraction, you need to show your room key. The question is, do you still have to show your room key for the extra magic hour morning?
I believe so, because I remember when I was at the Studios 20 event at Hollywood Studios 20th anniversary, and there was one of the days it was an extra magic hour morning. I wasn't staying on Disney World property, and I was there with a bunch of people. We were sitting outside the gate waiting for 9 o'clock to roll in, because not only did you have to throw in, put in your theme park admission, you also had to show your park ID. So I know at least at that point they were doing that. So,
but he's still wrong for parking at the Contemporary, though.
Polynesian.
Or wherever.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
That's the point that he's bringing up lots of debate.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So two different things: the parking, and then of course the resort ID and getting in over there. Although if you're working in an event chain, whoever your company is should be coordinating with Disney, so this shouldn't be an issue to begin with.
Or they should be comping him for the parking.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Exactly. So this shouldn't be an issue as much as it is, but that's for you and your boss to talk about. Well, that's it for us today. Don't forget that this episode of WDW Today has been sponsored by MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. And look, there's no debating about what a kind of a great value MEI and Mouse Fan Travel can be for you. I mean, let's look at the facts. One, there's no fee to you. That's right. It's going to be, at the very worst, it's going to be the same fee as if you booked it by yourself. So what's the benefit? You're going to get great service from the agents at MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. They're going to help you book your trip. Some new discount comes up in 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. Well, probably not 2 years, but 6 months from now. They're going to help you rebook your vacation, do it all for you, so that way you can get the best deals possible. They're going to make sure that you're going to get your ADRs. They're going to help you do all that stuff. If you got advice on something you haven't done before, maybe it's going to be a special event, a special experience on Disney World property. These people have not only done it before, they've done it many times before, and they can help you make that decision and give you some advice as to what you should do. So try them out. You're only standing to benefit from trying them out and go on a next trip to Walt Disney World, and you know what? You may find it being that much better.
You may even get your own room key.
What's that?
You may even get your own room key.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the perks. Try them out at www.mousefantravel.com. If you want to find our older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments. Whatever. Visit the WDW Today website at wdwtoday.com. For Line Testa, Mike Scopa, and Mike Newell, I am Matt Hochberg. We'll see you on the next show.
Stupid Judy, stupid energy.
This has been a production of Mouse World Radio.